Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Crowdfund Sport webinar. I am Anna from Crowdfunder, and for obvious reasons, we can't hold our workshops on location at the moment. So we're bringing them to your homes from our homes. Hopefully by the end of today's workshop, you'll leave knowing more about crowdfunding and the Active Together Fund to help you prepare to crowdfund for your sports organisation. And at the end, you'll be sent a link to the Learn platform, which will be showing you how to crowdfund, giving you the tools to raise the money to make your idea happen. Before we start, a quick bit of housekeeping. Firstly, we've allowed 30 minutes. Obviously, it might take a bit more or less, depending on the conversation and the questions that we might get. If you do have a question, do type it into the chat box to the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll try and make sure that we get all of them answered during today's live session. And as I mentioned, at the moment, we're all working from home, so anything can happen. Our internet might drop out. You might hear a dog barking or scratching at the door. Just bear with us, please. And finally, in case any of you are sitting there wondering, can we see you? We can't, don't worry, you can see us, but we can't see you. So today we're going to hear from our dedicated crowdfund sport coach, Chloe, and we're also going to hear from some people who have crowdfunded before. So we'll find out what worked and what didn't work in making their campaign a success. So without further ado, hopefully Chloe will be around.
Hello.
Hi, Chloe. How are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
I am good. I'm really good. So, Chloe, for those who don't know, can you tell us a little bit about crowdfunding?
Yeah, of course. So let me get my presentation up. There we go. So crowdfunding is a great way of raising money and awareness for your organisation by engaging with the community. You will create a page on our online platform that looks a bit like this. And on your page, you should outline who you are as a club, your impact in the community, and why you're crowdfunding. So for a lot of you here, that will be the effects that COVID has had on you as an organisation. Then be transparent about how you plan to spend the money that you raise so that your supporters can see how their pledges will help. You can add images and videos to your page to make it more engaging and add some personality. And you'll then promote your page or campaign to your crowd and community. Those that want to support you or perhaps fancy one of your rewards will then make a pledge to help you reach your goal. To help you make the most of your campaign, as Anna mentioned, we have created an online learning platform, especially for crowdfunding for sports. We will share with you all the tips and tricks you need to plan, create and run a successful campaign. It's really important that you are happy with your page before you go live and before applying to any extra funding as well, because this is what your application will be based on. Now, I mentioned something called rewards. Crowdfunder are the top rewards-based crowdfunding platform. That means that we offer our projects the option of adding rewards to their page, in addition to the standard donation that perhaps you'd associate with traditional fundraising. Rewards encourage larger and more pledges and enable you to attract pledges from outside your network. So let me give you an example. This is Hawcote Park Community Sports Club. They, like many of you here, have been affected financially by the pandemic, so they decided to crowdfund with us to help keep their club afloat. They created a fantastic page with loads of images and videos, lots of information about who they are as a club, who they are in the community as well. But my favourite part of their campaign was their rewards. So they had plenty of sports-focused rewards targeted at their more obvious audience, such as archery lessons, tennis coaching, signed football shirts. But they also branched out to appeal to the wider community. They reached out to local businesses and club members as well, who offered products that they can use as rewards, such as cakes from the local bakery, hampers, afternoon tea for tea, afternoon tea for two, and discounts and sort of hairdressers or MOTs, loads of bargains to help draw in a wider crowd and appeal to those who perhaps have absolutely no interest in sport, but will now make a pledge to help the club reach their target. They managed to raise over £32,000 from 273 supporters. So clearly that technique worked for them. Crowdfunder and Sport England have teamed up with an aim to help clubs and organisations who focus on bringing sport to the community and have struggled financially due to the coronavirus crisis. Part of this initiative is the Active Together Fund. So Sport England, as part of this fund, have put an amazing £2.5 million in match funding available to sports clubs in England. Each project can receive up to a maximum of £10,000 or 50% of their target. To be eligible for match funding, organisations must be not-for-profit and deliver sport to the community in England. If your application is approved, you must go on to reach 100% of your target to secure extra funding. So it's important that you really think about that when you're setting your target. And remember, Sport England do review both your application form and your project page. So make sure you're happy with that before applying. So on the next slide, I've just put together a little slide that shows you how it works. So you'll set up a page and apply for extra funding. When you reach 25% of your project target and the required supporter numbers, that's when you'll see the pledge go onto your page, and it will count towards your target. So it'll help boost you along, and you can use that pledge to incentivize the crowd. You know, we've been matched with extra funding from Sport England, but we need to reach our target in order to secure that. So continue pledging, continue sharing our page and help us get there. I mentioned required supporter numbers as well. That totally depends what your target is. So you can see in the table at the bottom there, if my target is £10,000, I need at least 50 unique supporters in order to activate Sport England extra funding. Now, you guys are at an advantage here because sport actually crowdfunds really well. And that makes sense to me because crowdfunding is all about communities getting together and cheering for a common goal. And I'm sure you can see a lot of similarities when it comes to sport. I've included on this slide some examples of sports clubs that are currently or have successfully crowdfunded with us. And you will see everything on there from football and rugby to archery and diving. Hopefully that's given you a little bit of food for thought. Anna, I'm going to hand back to you.
Thank you very much, Chloe. That is great. So next up, we're going to hear from Tom and Mark, who raised an impressive £10,321 for Newquay AFC. If you do have any questions for them, do pop them in the box on the right-hand side. I've seen lots of questions have come in so far. Tom and Mark, are you both there? Hello.
Hello.
Thank you very much for joining us. So your project raised over £10,000 from 70 supporters, which is incredible. Can you tell us a little bit more about your project?
Yeah. So the football club, Association Football Club, based down in Cornwall, in the Southwestern Peninsula League. The club originated from around 1890, and has been committee and officer run. We got to a point where the club were either do or die. About 12 months ago, and I think that that's probably a feeling across a lot of clubs in England, and we decided as a group of officers and committee to to do. And one of the things that attracted us was the opportunity of inward investment. But we didn't want to do that by just having an individual invest £10,000-20,000 because we were in the middle of a pandemic. So what we decided to do is take the brave thing of crowdfunding. Not one of us knew what crowdfunding were about, but actually, as we reached out to Crowdfunder and set up what you've just explained in terms of a page. We then were contacted, very quickly by the team at Crowdfunder, and a month later, we were in a place that we never ever expected to be.
Amazing, and I think that's you touched on why did you decide to crowdfund rather than going down another avenue?
Yeah, I think against a lot of our previous committee and officers' doubts, that this technology thing won't work, and nobody really knows about crowdfunding. It was so fantastic to see the local community come together, and actually be able to support their local football club, whether that would were contributing £5 or even £500. It's really brought a community together, and unfortunately, probably for the last 10-15 years, the club had lost its way a little. We're a clubhouse that looked like something from the 1890s. We weren't the most hospitable club to players, and it was a space that not many people felt proud of. Whereas, I look at what's been achieved over the last 12 months and the confidence that's grown due to us having funds to make, investments into the facilities of the clubhouse, the players' facilities. We're on with a project at the minute where we've actually knocked the dugouts flat to rebuild them. But because of the crowdfunder, it's actually brought the local business community together. So our dugouts are now being built by the local college. We've had the blocks donated. So really, even though crowdfunder's given us the injection of the cash, it's actually brought people out of the woodwork that we never knew existed. And that's that. So for us, is an amazing offspin of not only just crowdfunding, but actually bringing everybody together.
Yeah, I think before people crowdfund, they definitely don't realise those sort of other benefits that come. And as you said, like the whole community have backed it, which is, it's really great to have everyone they've invested their bit, their energy and a bit of money into whatever they got as a reward is really important. And so they feel a part of your journey moving forward. So what did you find the most difficult thing about crowdfunding? I don't know which one of you wants to answer that one.
Mark, do you want to go on that?
Yeah, getting started. It was we joined one of these. Then we'd heard of crowdfunder before. Your head office luckily is around the corner from us, and that's kind of what gave us the idea. But until we joined this, we had no idea how to do it. We'd looked at the page and and ahed about doing it, but until we really started. So yeah, that was it, getting over that first hurdle of procrastinating and thinking, right, okay, could we do this? Could we not? How much time is it going to take? Because we've all got full-time jobs. Tom's in that club all the time, as well as running the business department at the college. I'm full-time. We've all got families, and you worry about that and a lot of things. But when we started it, it's far easier than you think. So yeah, I would say that was the most difficult part, was actually logging on, doing the admin side of things, and getting going.
Yeah, I think to add to that as well, and there's not a club that I've ever been involved in where you have a community of naysayers and people who tell you that what are you doing that for? The club's always run this way. There's nothing wrong with the club. What this project did is it allowed us to be able to prove to those naysayers that this can be achieved, and there is other people as important as you. And what that's done is it's actually took our gate numbers from being about 150 to about 270 now on average. So we if we would have listened to the naysayers, we probably would have stood still. So I think that's another benefit, shall we say, of it were a difficulty at the beginning, because when you're listening to your naysayers who's been there 60, 70 years, you start you respect their views. But I think we had to do something different to survive.
Yeah, no, that's
it's done wonders for the morale of the people that actually work at the club now, hasn't it? It's,
absolutely,
really raised it up.
That's incredible. That's really good. And when you when you crowdfunded, we talked about what was difficult. What did you find worked best?
Do you know, it was for us. It was the update. Well, actually, no. First and foremost was gaining the support of a lot of people first, getting them to say, right, actually, we will pledge X amount of pounds. So we knew sort of, straight out of the gate, we would have people pledging. And that was something that you guys, you convinced us to do, was look, gain at least 10 donations. So you're not, when you go live, it's not just on zero. And that really helped. And in fact, the response was amazing, really. We were already hitting like some of our sort of early targets we'd set ourselves like straight away. The other thing that we didn't quite understand, actually, which you've just put up on screen then, was when the Sport England funds come in, we didn't realise that gets added to the target. So we set our target really low. So I would say to anybody, actually believe in it and set your target a little bit higher, because as soon as that funding came from Sport, we realised that was going to put us right at the top of our target straight away with what we'd taken, and we didn't quite understand that. So I would say set a reasonable target, but set it high, because once the Sport England fund does come in, it takes you very quickly towards your goal.
Yeah, that's definitely, as coaches, we always do recommend an achievable target is definitely one of our top tips, because it's good for it to make it a success rather than really aiming way too high. But that's really good. Like feedback from your experience.
I think another thing on what Mark said is we actually shared the goal with the committee and the officers and the supporters. So, we put regular tannoys out, we leaflet dropped, every supporter and member of the club. But we shared every day through a WhatsApp group what progress that we'd made. So what that meant then is everybody were talking about it every day. And that's one of the tips that maybe gave us, is let it not be something that just happens one day and then you look forward to the end result. It gave a real energy, and these are people that across our committee and officers are tradespeople in the main, so not necessarily used to having fixed targets and deadlines, only within their own business that they can influence. So just hearing it being spoken about, and people wanting to know do we need an extra £50 to help us along this way, it were like, well, that would have never happened without as having crowdfunder underpinning on as a campaign.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point there, that there is not like one magic ingredient, or if you do one thing and then you're going to make it successful. It is that constant trying to sort of reach out to different groups of people in different methods, and you want to just keep reminding people of the campaign. Obviously you don't have to sort of shout about it every day to the same extreme, but it's definitely that sort of a combination of things that make it successful. We're going to move on to a bit about rewards. So what worked best for you in terms of rewards?
To be completely honest, we got this completely wrong at the beginning. We ignored the advice because we thought, well, we don't need rewards. We spent a long time scratching our heads about what would people actually want. And what we realised is what we were providing were what we would have, not them. So that were the biggest doink. We had hotels, done it in weddings, weekend stays, and you sat there thinking, well, this is for the local community in the main. So how is it going to benefit them when they can do that anytime, or a lot of people are married or not? So we actually just went back to basics, and we looked at the working with local restaurateurs. We looked at a wall of fame within the club. We looked at signed shirt sponsorship. We looked at membership, different opportunities. We looked at sponsorship and all different bits and pieces. And it actually were the basics that all added up together what made the difference, rather than the one big things, So I think, it's about having a good variety of rewards, but things that people would want, not necessarily what you would want.
That's a really good point. We always say to do it with, to think about the rewards, thinking about the people that you're actually going to be reaching out to. When you know it, it seems really straightforward, but for some reason it's hard to
it helped us as well to use the rewards across our social media. So Mark looked after our social media page, and he were able to use the different rewards as a message. So each day we were able to put something different out. But what it did is it attracted some local media radio attention, because actually a crowdfunding campaign, being able to give a wedding away, for a raffle prize, just never heard of, so it actually attracted attention that we didn't expect, from local radio stations wanting to interview us about how we'd achieve that. It's be prepared for that as well. Brilliant.
That's really good. And so Mark and Tom, you were obviously two people in the group. Were there anyone else that worked as part of sort of this campaign? And how did you divide up the workload?
There was nobody worked as long. Could safely say. But no, everybody was involved. The whole. I mean, I'll come back to a really good idea that Tom had in a second. But there was not one person in the club that wasn't helping out. We made a big thing of filming a video and taking constant updates of pictures of the work that the guys were doing. So all the way whilst we were raising funds, everybody was, from ripping out bars, ripping down ceilings, changing toilet seats, and there was nobody not getting their hands dirty. So we made a really big thing of everybody getting involved. And one of the things that we found really sort of got the community involved further was. We basically took all the players into the, couldn't call it a players' lounge at the time. It was probably a health and safety risk, but we took them all. We took them all in. We give them a little bit of food. It was the end of one of the match days anyway, so we were cooking food, and so we weren't spending money that we didn't have. We gave them beer, and they all they basically got behind the idea. They committed to it. And they all, between them, I think, was it a week's wages that I mean, which is not, it's not millions of pounds. We're not, Premier League. But it really sort of helped, and then they shared it with their families. So we got those guys all involved. So there wasn't anybody to do with the club that didn't get involved, from all the way from the youth team all the way through to, the full-time players. It's, amazing to see.
That's the wonderful thing about, sports clubs, crowdfunding, is that there are lots of people and you can, get everyone involved. And the more people you get involved, and rather than sort of relying on one person to be able to share it out, the more people you get on board, the wider your network is, and the more exposure, I guess, and the more chance of being successful. So can I have a sort of a piece of advice from perhaps both of you, if you were to give someone advice for if they're going to crowdfund?
I think, my words would be, don't dither and delay.
Yeah.
Crack on.
Completely agree.
Yeah. I think you can spend a lot of time umming and ahhing. You can look at the wiring. I think you're in very safe hands with the team. Like I said, we didn't have a clue, but to actually have that coach and that support, and just somebody to pick up the phone to and speak to, and it be at no cost, makes a huge difference. That'd be mine. Really, really just get on with it.
Mm. Film a good video and a short one. We filmed one which was a bit like a full-on feature film at first, and we were told to edit it down pretty quickly. But just walk around with a camera, get somebody charismatic in front of it, which we did, and then just short sharp video about 2 minutes, no more than 3 minutes long. Just sort of showing what you're trying to achieve. And if it's, doing renovations like we were, really playing on the heartstrings of how much the roof's falling down and all that sort of thing. So but just get on with it, crack on. It's not that difficult actually. Once you go in, you're probably going to have like a month of constantly sharing things around, but its benefits far outweigh that once it's done.
That's good. And yeah, I like your point about the video, always recommended. I think it really brings a project to life. We see that they do much better when they do have videos. So yeah, that's very helpful. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We now have some questions from the audience. I'm going to ask Chloe to come back and join us, hopefully. And we also have Murray Toms, who is our resident football expert here at Crowdfunder. Murray, are you there as well?
Hello.
Hello, both of you. So thank you, Murray, also for joining us. You worked with Newquay AFC when they were crowdfunding. Could you tell us a little bit about your role at Crowdfunder?
Sure, and it's been great to hear like the sort of the advice that Tom and Mark have been sharing. It's absolutely brilliant. I mean, and football clubs across the country have always got people like Tom and Mark, sort of humble, hardworking guys that sort of keep their clubs afloat. And we're sort of seeing how Crowdfunder really sort of supporting those people right now. My role at Crowdfunder is I head up the campaigns at the business. I was one of the founding members back in the day. But I'm also a director at Cheltenham Town, who nobody really heard of until we almost beat Man City a couple of weeks ago. We're the only club to have done it this season. But we've, like, collectively as supporters at Cheltenham Town, we've raised about £150,000 over 6 or 7 campaigns down the years, and that's really sort of like brought a really sort of like a fan-led kind of element to the club. What we've done during the pandemic is work with hundreds and hundreds of clubs just like Newquay. Their story is brilliant, but there are so many more as well. We sort of, what we did on the sort of verge of the lockdown last year as a business, we made a decision to waive all of our platform fees and create a campaign called Pay It Forward, initially for the hospitality trade because of the sort of overnight collapse in their revenue. But what we saw on the football side of things was that clubs quickly adopted that model and began campaigns of their own, some quite creative, using the rewards as we've heard today. So we're with hundreds of clubs, I think on like all sorts of different scale. At the top end, we work with Wigan Athletic and help them crowdfund about almost £1 million across 2 campaigns to help the club when it was in dire trouble last year. It still is. But that's close to being resolved. We work with about a third of EFL clubs directly, and also we've worked with hundreds of non-league and grassroots clubs, which is where some of the pound for pound, some of the biggest successes have been. It's not all about money, as we've heard already. Fundraising is obviously a great thing at the end of it. Cash in the bank is what we all need right now. But what these campaigns are generating is meaningful fan engagement, and it's also producing loads of really compelling stories. And I know we've made a film about Newquay, and I think we might be seeing it in a bit. We'll certainly share it after this. So yeah, so COVID is having this dramatic effect on clubs all over the place. But right now, crowdfunding is bringing together not just supporters but sponsors at clubs as well, which are essential, like in the ecosystem. So they're reconnecting local businesses to their clubs as well as the supporters. So that's what we've been doing. And I think we've sort of raised, I think, over £3 million for football clubs across the board, around 40,000 supporters, and there's an average pledge of about £83, which sort of shows the value of being creative and using rewards, as the chaps say. But I couldn't agree more with their sort of bit of advice at the end there, which is like, get started, get to the starting line. You can evolve campaigns, supporters, local businesses, your community. They'll tell you what works and what doesn't work, and so you're always evolving campaigns as you go. And it's and the chaps there have said as much. But yeah, get started is it, and then and see where it takes you, because it's very exciting. It can be very exciting.
Thank you very much. And we've got a few quite a lot of questions from the audience, so we'll run through some of them. We might not be able to get through all of them, but I'm going to sort of point them in the right direction. So Christine is asking, this one's probably for you, Chloe, when does the current fund end? Is there a time set you need to be crowdfunding? How long can you basically have your crowdfunding campaign open for as well?
Okay, so there's no deadline as such, but there is a limited amount in the pot. So it's better to start as soon as possible. We have distributed 1.5 million of extra funding to date. So there's still £1 million in the pot, which sounds like a lot, but it goes really quickly. So you're better to get started sooner rather than later. With regards to running a campaign, you can set your own duration anywhere between 2 and 8 weeks. We suggest 4 weeks tends to be the optimum. It gives you enough time to run an intensive campaign without exhausting both yourself and your audience.
I think that also on that point, Chloe, I think what you always see in virtually every single crowdfunding project is a middle part of the project where it plateaus. There's an enormous amount of excitement at the start, and there's a real sort of flurry of activity towards the end. But that middle part, that's the challenge, is to sort of work into that to try and create enough noise and promotion to keep the interest going. But that middle bit is always a bit of a flat bit, and that's always a bit of a challenge for most people. People panic and think nothing's happening. So the longer you have your project, the longer that middle bit's going to be, and the longer, more sleepless nights you're going to have. So 3 to 4 weeks is perfect. Yeah.
Brilliant. We've got a question about rewards. Can perhaps Chloe, you might be able to answer this. Can you add further rewards after you've added, once you've done your application and once you've got your project live?
Yeah, you can add rewards throughout a campaign, and it's a good idea to do so, especially in that point that Murray was talking about, that bit where it plateaus in the middle. If you can release new rewards, you can post an update about it. You can bring supporters back to your page because of that exciting new discount or whatever it might be. And it's a great way of getting some extra pledges in during that quieter time.
Mm. And someone's actually asking, Tom and Mark, what rewards did you offer?
Sign everything from signed footballs to, like Tom said, we had a wedding on there at one point at one of the local hotels. So we couldn't quite grasp that we were going to give rewards and then have to give or pay for rewards out of our funds at the end of it. And that's what we were sort of struggling with. But once we sort of realised it, and Mary explained it to us, anything like we had fish and chips from like one of the restaurants like close by, coaching sessions as well with the coaches, so like a one-on-one or a two people training session. I know things are difficult like that at the minute because obviously of COVID, various
Did
ones.
you do any membership? Someone's asking about can you include junior or senior membership as a reward?
Yeah, we did do, but what we found is that a lot of the members had already renewed their membership. So what we actually did is we looked at how do we utilise the facilities in which we've got. So we looked at things like seasonal car parking. So for anybody who visits Newquay, they'll know it's quite expensive to park. So what we did is we offered it £100 for a season. The car park's not used 6 days out of the week. So what we were able to do there is we were able to generate around £2,500 just by actually thinking differently about the space that we've got. So it's just trying to think about the space in which you've got and how can you best use it. But my advice as well is look at all of your sponsors that you've got, if you've got sponsors, within your club, and actually, get them on board. And that's one of the things that we did is we wrote out to all of our sponsors and let them know what we're trying to achieve. And it was great just to see what came in, that we'd never even think about. So sometimes by asking them to, donate a reward rather than being too specific, you don't know what the value of that's going to be, and in some cases, we got a wedding donated, which come as a bit of a surprise, but it brought a lot of attention to it.
I think that's really important, Tom. I think, you know, that what a lot of these campaigns are about reducing dependency on the same people the same way. So supporters and local businesses. Normally, there's been a sort of way of doing things in football for a long time, which is going to local businesses, asking for money and giving nothing back. So this is a new way of perhaps re-engaging with those local businesses, finding new businesses, finding the ones that have maybe drifted away, and getting them involved in a different way. So yeah, instead of asking for cash and then sort of running away with the cash and spending it on whatever, I mean, likewise, I've sold MOTs before. For like a local garage has given me 10 MOTs, but that's a great way to give a local business a lot of visibility at a time when a campaign is at its height. So they get a little bit of a sort of warm glow and a little bit of visibility for supporting the club. The club get. And it might be sort of like easier for them to give 10 MOTs rather than 500 quid in cash. But also, it's great for supporters too. So, you know, you're creating an environment where everybody is getting something out of it for once. And that's been a problem in football for a long time. So that's what the platform can do.
Thank you very much. We've got a few technical questions about the funding that would be quite good to run through. Firstly, so one question is, if we think we can raise £1,000, does this include the 25% from Sport England? If so, should we increase our target to reflect this? Chloe, do you want to discuss?
Yeah, so the extra funding goes towards your campaign, so it will go towards your target that you set. You know, how much do you need to raise, I think, is more the question that we should be asking. You know, not I think I can raise this, so let's double it. But actually, how much do you need to take the next steps? You can always add a stretch target after that as well. And if you do get extra funding from Sport England, it goes onto your campaign and you can carry on crowdfunding after that as well.
Perfect. And I think that answers actually a couple of other people's questions about once you've hit your target, your Sport England match funding is based on your initial target, I think is.
Yeah, so it will be calculated as a percentage of your initial target that you set. If you exceed that target, great. It doesn't affect the match funding. I saw one question asking about if I raise more than that, does the amount diminish to make you hit your target? But no, you'll get whatever you've been approved from Sport England. That's what will go onto your campaign. And if you overrun that, then brilliant, keep going.
Perfect. One more technical question about the match funding. Unique supporter, what is that, Chloe?
Good question. A unique supporter is calculated by unique logins and unique payment cards.
Perfect, thank you. A few more questions, Mark and Tom, for yourselves, and then I think we'll have to sort of finish because we are running over, I'm afraid, by quite a few minutes already. So firstly, what strategy did you use to involve the whole community? Do you have any tips on that?
I think, you know, your committee officers tend to be the most connected people because they've been around for 50, 60 years. So they're the people that, you know, are connected locally really well. And we brought them in. You know, we brought them in and we spoke to them about what we were trying to achieve, even though there were a few naysayers within that. But, you know, we got on with it. We were fortunate to have somebody connected to the local newspaper and radio. And, you know, we started to have a scheme, you know, where we were part of their like equivalent of Talk Sport, you know, where we went on there and spoke about it. And we reached out to different areas within Cornwall as well, so not just Newquay. So we spoke to St Austell, we spoke to the West Cornwall area, so that, you know, people knew what we were trying to achieve, and that's what really brought everybody on board. We spoke to the educational institutions around us. We spoke to the local NHS. We spoke to, you know, the police. So it acted in the bids. So, you know, down here in Cornwall, I don't know if it's anywhere else, but they have the business improvement district managers. And, you know, we just kept reaching out and trying to challenge and involve everybody. So, you know, for when we'd set out, Mark spoke about having a reserved objective around £3,500, and that were, £3,500 would have turned, would have been enough to turn this club around. So to actually come away with £10,000, just, I think once we'd actually got to £3,500, I think we'd done that within a couple of weeks. It was just like, right, actually, let's go for this, and everybody wanted it to work. But I think that's because we involved everybody from the beginning, and it weren't new news.
Brilliant. And I think that's a very good point. Like, leave no stone unturned. It sounds like that was definitely a motto of yours.
Yeah.
And someone's just asking about what did the money raised go towards?
So we have. I said to you at the beginning of the call, I don't think our clubhouse has been updated since 1890. It was the red crushed velvet seating with the brass press studs. It was the dance floor was swimming in beer. We've completely renovated every single nut and cranny of that clubhouse. Took it back to the framework. It's now a place that can accommodate 100 people with multimedia suite involved in it, so we can reach out to the local community, the local community to use it for NHS reasons. We've invested it into a canteen, so we've completely refurbished the canteen area. The canteen area will probably making 30-40 quid a game. It's now making about 250 to 300 quid a game. And as I've just said, we're now focused on the dugouts. So we've done that. We've purchased the equipment that this club needed to be able to operate, i.e. tractors, spades, sand. But we're now looking at the grass, the grandstand. So looking to put seating in there. We still sat with some seats that you get splinters in. So we want our away teams to feel as though there's a good level of hospitality here, but we also want to be the host for senior games within the county as well. We've not spent every penny, but we've been careful in terms of how we spend it. But every penny has been assigned within the budget to be invested back into the club. And I think because our committee officers and supporters can see that, I have no worries that if we were to run another crowdfunder, which is part of our plans, we would get as much support as we did on our first one.
I think what it shows, Tom, is that like the end of a crowdfunding campaign is literally just the start of the journey.
Absolutely.
People think, but it's very clear now. There's a change in mindset. There's a change in attitude. There's a change in kind of energy, and and it's very clear now. You've got a sort of long run of projects. That you're going to be doing for years. Yeah. You probably go back to the community again, and they will support you again because you've validated your ideas. So.
Yeah, and to see some of my old boys, and they're in, let's put it in a way that our volunteers are in the 70s, 80s, and they've not been able to ask for this type of equipment before. So to actually be where somebody's now asking for a piece of equipment to make their job easier, and having the confidence that we've got the money in the bank to be able to do that, the smile on their faces at the end. I'll give you an example. We're just sorting out our grandstand, and the old boys sat there with an electric screwdriver, and we've got maybe 20 sheets of wood. So we've just rented an air gun, an air nail gun, and I've made his world. Because he can now do the job well. And this is an ex-carpenter who just needs a little bit of help. So I think there's those nice things that come out of what we've achieved as well.
That's brilliant. And we touched on slightly just then about possibly running another crowdfunder. Murray, do you have any sort of comments if people wanted to crowdfund again? How long they should wait, perhaps? Whether they can, whether they need to change the story. Any advice on that?
Yeah, I don't think there's a fixed answer to that. We have seen plenty of clubs return to do new campaigns, some within a week, some have taken several months. I think it's all part of the story at that particular club. All campaigns at their core, there's an organisation that needs some money, but the way they go about it and what they're going to use the money for is it differs from project to project. So I don't think there's a fixed answer to that. But if you have momentum, then we're seeing a lot of clubs that just sense that momentum is with them, and so they do go back to their sort of communities quite quickly. If your campaigns are created well enough so that you're creating that environment where everybody gets something out of it, that it's not sort of like slipping back to the old days of just asking for money and running away to spend it on player wages or whatever, then I think people buy into what you're doing and they validate. Those ideas are validated through crowdfunding. So you very much get a sense of whether it's right or wrong to go for it. And to be honest, if you went for it and you misjudged it, you can just stop. You can put it on pause. As long as you're transparent and you're communicating with your community and your supporters, I think that's the most important thing. Ask people, what do they think? Just go back and say, shall we go and do the dugouts? What do you think? Would you be prepared to do that now, or should we wait a couple of months? You've got to involve everybody. It's a team effort now. It's not just, the two chaps at the club who are putting all their time in and everyone else just turns up on a Saturday. We're moving past that now. Now we're talking about communities working together.
And if people do crowdfund again, a question for you, Chloe, are they able to apply again for the Sport England funding?
So if you've received extra funding for a specific campaign from Sport England, they won't repeat extra funding because obviously we want to help as many clubs as possible and not just that one same club over and over again. But we have loads of extra funding partners. There may well be other funds available. We're continuously getting new partners on board. So it's definitely worth always checking out that extra funding tab on your dashboard.
I think the great thing about Newquay was that they were supported by Sport England, but they were also supported by Cornwall Council that we work with. We've got relationships with 40 local authorities around the country, and that number is growing. So that, as Chloe says, there are other pots, and Newquay kind of hit the sweet spot in a way that their project was recognised not only by Sport England, but by their local council too. So, it's fantastic.
Brilliant. And I think one final question, and then I think we'll call it a day. And perhaps this one's for Murray. Are most projects that we see used to renovate or for new buildings for facilities? Or, for example, could you use it for supporting coaches that aren't currently earning anything?
You can create campaigns for anything. We see a lot of capital projects, a lot of facilities projects. We see a lot of clubs looking to invest in their youth programs. It's quite an effective marketing tool. I've done one before, and other people have too, where it's literally an opportunity to create a marketing campaign where the byproduct was cash to do something clever and funny and creative. So there's no limit to what you can use it for. And I think, the limit is just the creativity, really. And I would say that, I sort of work with a colleague of mine who's a marketing director at the Dorset FA2. Myself and Scott, we make up the football team at Crowdfunder, and I know we're running out of time, so I'm just going to say that we sit down and talk to everybody that wants to talk to us about their project. So if they want to get in touch with myself or Scott, go to crowdfunder.co.uk/football. Have a look at that. football@crowdfunder.co.uk is the email address. We will sit down with you and we'll sort of understand what you're trying to do and hopefully add a bit of value to that.
Brilliant. Well, that is amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been amazing to hear from you guys, Mark and Tom, and Murray as well. Thank you for joining us. I'm sure that the audience would really appreciate all of the nuggets of information that they've received. So, Chloe, can you let us know what are the next steps for those watching today?
Absolutely. So hopefully everyone has got a better understanding of crowdfunding as a whole and how it can be beneficial for your organisation. So now it's your turn to become an expert. Follow the link to join our online learning platform for Crowdfund Sport. You'll learn about the ins and outs of planning, creating and running a successful campaign, and we'll give you all the tools you need to make the most of your campaign. There should be a link in the chat box to that, which I think, yes, there it is.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Chloe. Thank you again, Murray, Tom and Mark. So follow the link to the Learn platform to take the next step in your crowdfunding journey. Thank you everyone for watching. And hopefully now we're going to end with a little video. And yeah, have a very good day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
UK Football Club is about 110-year-old. It's grassroots.
The place was a mess. The roof had fallen down. COVID had hit. We're going to run out of money before we get this work done.
You know, we were in significant debt. We really wanted the club to be a safe place, but a place that is growing. I think for a football club to survive, it has to think differently. We're working really hard to try and bring a different buzz to a football club. One that provided great hospitality, and what I mean by that is great facilities for our players, but also great facilities for our spectators. What we really want to try and do is not just stand still and really work on trying to involve the local community.
Any spare time I've got, I come over here to help the guys at Newquay AFC. We want everybody to use this as like the social hub of the community. And that's the most important thing for us.
We're a new, fresh thinking committee, and that allowed us all to make a decision together. And the decision was to reach out to Crowdfunder.
I'm Murray Toms and I'm part of the football team at Crowdfunder. Crowdfunder brings people together around things that matter, and in communities around the UK, football matters.
I've been down to the Crowdfunder headquarters before. It was a no-brainer really. We needed funding and we'd seen plenty of successful campaigns.
What's happened here is absolutely fantastic. They set out to achieve a relatively modest total, but they drove some real momentum into what they're doing and the fans really got behind them.
It also gave us a lot of encouragement to think about really what we could do differently to develop a crowdfunding campaign that pulled everybody together.
It's more than just giving, it's about behavioural change. It's about developing new digital skills and building a more sustainable future for the game. It drives meaningful fan engagement, but when supporters are invested financially and emotionally in what you're doing, it creates a really powerful bond with the community. And that caught the eye of Sport England, who pledged £4,000 of their own, and that's made a really big difference to the club.
We've got aspirations to build upon our objectives, to be able to give some great facilities for our players. We want to look at our grandstand, and that kind of mindset never existed in this club.
It's amazing really the help we've received from Sport England and crowdfunding.
The impact of the £4,000 pledge to our campaign has really set a buzz around the whole community. It's really appreciated for a club of this size. And that's gave us some real edge to think about what can we actually do next.